Hello, and welcome to another fully live episode of Hacking with Friends. My name is Kody KIlian. I am a security researcher at Varonis, and today we have my friend and fellow hacker, Kilian, on to talk about the hacker news. Kilian, thanks for joining us.
We're back. It feels like a lifetime ago, Kody, that I just saw you in person at RSA, but it feels like ages, but it's only been, what, a week? Not even a week, huh?
To our viewers, it's been about 3 days because that's when we finally put up the version of the stream that we made at the RSA conference. So little behind the scenes information. While I was recording that, the volume on the headphones I was wearing had been turned up all the way by the previous person who I guess couldn't hear very well. So even whispering, Kilian was basically shouting in my ears at full volume. And when I left, it was both of my ears were ringing. So quite the thunderous kind of stream that we had at RSAC, but it was cool. I really enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun there. I didn't really realize how many friends I have, both from actually working at Varonis, like some people who still work here, some people that have gone off to work at other companies. Like I all got to get together and see them, and it was super cool. Like I forgot that also a lot of people from DEF CON are also present at the conference. So I got to hang out at the sandbox. I got to meet up with the physical entry or physical I need to get their name right. Sorry. The village that had the lock picking and physical entry village. I think that's what they were called. But either way, they were super cool. And then IoT hacking village was also really great. I had a lot more fun than I thought I would. I kind of remember the last couple RSAC conferences as just like going around the conference floor and recording some footage, but I forgot that there's some really cool demonstrations and really cool entities upstairs at the sandbox. We didn't cover that in all the talks that I recommended because I was so focused on getting through the talks and the other vendor areas. But I kind of slept on that. So new on my list of recommendations is checking out the sandbox, and I thought it was really fun. So also, hello everybody in the chat. We've got a lot of activity and some of it around the title, which was Wi-Fi hacking. Now, if anybody has watched the Security Forward channel for a long time, then you might know that there's some go-to people that we have as guests that have come on or contributed that typically cover one giant segment of the news when it comes to hacking. And by that, I mean, they're making discoveries that are constantly in the news. So if you hear about a story involving Wi-Fi, or if you hear a story involving macOS security, I can 90% of the time know the security researcher that's going to be quoted on CNN because they've probably been on our stream, and they just kind of cover that stuff. So this was one of those where there was a big story about Wi-Fi hacking and how you can do this downgrade attack. And when I was playing the demo, I instantly recognized the voice of the person as Matthew Van Hoff, who's a Wi-Fi expert we've had on the stream, I think a couple of times actually, and was on a podcast that I did one time as well. So really cool to see some friends I know in the news again for good reasons, of course, making some interesting discoveries. So we will get to that. But let's just say that the person who made the discovery that is in some of the headlines today is actually a friend and somebody who has been on the stream a couple times. So if you want to take a look at what Matthew has to say about Wi-Fi hacking, you can actually find a really great interview on the Security Forward channel. So kind of a cool tie-in that one of the people in the news today was also a guest.
I have one question for you, but I have to shout out something here. I'm looking off the side of my screen. G33K Sec 404. Almost time for Razor and Blade. That is such a hackers movie deep cut, and I love it. I love that there. The two hackers on the movie Hackers. That's a deep cut, and I appreciate that as a cinema person and a big fan of Hackers from '95. I think. We're not that cool. I'm not gonna. Cody, you're pretty cool. I am definitely not that cool, but thank you. I appreciate that. That's a deep cut. The other thing is, Cody, did you end up going to any of the hacker spaces in San Francisco? I meant to ask you about that, but we haven't talked since.
Yes. So I went to Noisebridge and Querius Labs.
Oh, you went both?
I went to both. And there's another one called Double Union that I was also recommended to go to. I hear it's really nice, but they're a little bit more structured, whereas I would definitely describe a Noisebridge as a bit of an anarchist space in terms of they have open control over most functions of the space, and you can just kind of come and participate. And for the most part, that's just fine. So I had a lot of fun there. It's one of the largest hacker spaces I've ever been to. I highly recommend checking it out. But I will say it's one of those spaces where there's not always a great protocol to like maybe remove people who might make other, I don't know. I found that there were a lot of very eccentric people there. That, but some other people might not be. So just because it's so large, so many people are there, there's so many different types of people there, that can be a good thing. And it can also be sometimes a little overwhelming. So when I went to Curious Labs, they were a group that kind of split off from Noisebridge, and they wanted to ensure that their space was a safe and friendly space for everyone, but especially for queer people. And they felt that maybe, you know, they didn't have as much control as they wanted. So rather than just be sour about it, they went and made their own space, which I really admire. I think that that's like, if you don't, you know, if you're participating in a space and you don't necessarily agree with the way it's being run, you can either fight about it or you can just go and do your own thing. So I really enjoyed Curious Labs. Like I told everyone when I walked in, everybody was watching Star Trek. I got a great tour of the space and I felt really comfortable there. And I definitely want to go back. I also really like that they have a website that lets you know whether the space is open or not. Like you can just click on it and it says if it's open. That's why I came over originally. I could verify before like walking over that it was already open. And I thought that was cool. But yeah, lots of blinky lights, lots of cool projects and a lot of very friendly people who were just, like super open to showing me everything. I have to say my favorite thing about Noisebridge was they have a like sewing, clothing, and kind of fabrics room that takes up a relatively large footprint. And it was the busiest part of the whole hackerspace. There was more people in there doing everything from fashion to cosplaying stuff that I was really impressed by that. I've never seen that set aside at a space like that before, at least that large. And then they also had a music room. And I thought that was really cool that people, if they wanted to, had access to a lot of like, you know, instruments and were able to like play that. But like, you know, the struggles of having such a large open space were told to me by numerous members. Are like, yeah, like some people tried to like sleep here and basically like live in the space. And like, you know, it's really hard to maintain an open space like that. And I admire them for taking on a very complex social problem and turning it into a really, really cool spot that virtually anybody can come into and do whatever they want. Like, I thought that was great. So if you're ever in San Francisco, definitely check out those two. I give them my personal seal of approval for like being great spaces to create things in and become a part of other people's awesome projects. The art in Noisebridge alone, I think, was enough to justify a visit there. So super impressed.
Well, we'll have to keep that on my radar for next year, because I didn't get out much to the extracurriculars in the city, but that sounds like a lot of fun. I've never been to a hackerspace, so I'm definitely curious to see what like a well-run one looks like. That was hard to get out.
Yeah, no, it was crazy. I wish I could have taken you. Yeah, I really didn't know what it was going to be like because I'd heard so many things online. Like I just really didn't know what the space was going to be because everybody has their own experience there. Everybody has their own like takeaway from it. So yeah, like going in and seeing it, I was like, okay, now I understand. You know, because like there's just a giant mix of people and living in the state that I'm living in, I'm used to a big like weird mix of people, so it's fine. So yeah, like I found it really great. So if anybody else in the chat has been to Noisebridge or Curious Labs, let me know. I would love to hear what your experience was and see whether or not it was. I mean, you know, I was there like 3 times, so I'm not going to say I'm an expert or anything, but I'd love to know if anybody else had a similar experience when visiting. So out of our 60 people so far. So I also have to say on the list of makerspaces and hackerspaces I really enjoy, I definitely want to rank the Missoula Makerspace as one of them. And I happen to be going there this week. So if anybody happens to be in the Missoula area, I'm going to be doing a free workshop there with the Missoula Public Library Makerspace. So when I walked in there, I was just like, this is one of the most beautiful maker spaces I've ever seen. Like, I really enjoy it. And I want to like do stuff here. And since then, I've hosted a number of different workshops. I had a little bit of a hiccup when they had like a staffing shuffle and like the person I was working with at the makerspace was moved on to another job. And the new person like took a while to get up to speed. But this is the first workshop I'm going to be doing since that process happened. So it's been like, I think maybe like 8 months or so. So I'm super excited because I think that this is one of my favorite maker spaces. It's absolutely gorgeous. And if you're going to be around, then check it out. It's going to be really fun. Also, this is not canon. I don't know where they got this image. I did not sign off on it. I did not approve it. The approved image for this class is this.
I love that.
Yeah,
I literally love that.
It's like, you know, having the nugget like looming over the city of Missoula, I think is exactly like the kind of energy that I'm trying to promote here. So yes, I'm sorry for the unlicensed image being used here. I don't know who approved that, but I'm kidding. It's fine. But this is my preferred image for the class. So we're going to be teaching about Wi-Fi hacking and basically using people's devices as a lab to get a little bit better at Wi-Fi self-defense. So again, this is a free class at the Missoula Makerspace. We have room for 20, and I'm pretty sure that we already blew past that, but I put in a word to see if we can maybe expand the class to 30 and just like loan people devices. But the first, I think 20 people will actually get to keep these devices for free.
Nice.
So I can see why the class is popular. But we also had a cancellation or a no-show rate of like 50% for these free classes before. So we've ended up not giving them up before. So anyway, if you are going to be in Missoula, definitely check it out. Love doing these because the makerspace is incredibly cute and has some great stuff there. All right, so I'm going to cover this in a minute, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the Meshtastic stuff that I covered before. No, not that one. Yes. So I wanted to attempt to see what the limits of this technology are in an area that has relatively few nodes out here. And I wanted to show the results of my experiment. So in order to bring a node up really, really high so that I could communicate with every single device in the city that I'm in, I did two things. First, I went up to the top of a mountain and tried communicating from there. And I got like pretty mixed results. Like because I was so far to one side, I was able to hit a couple nodes on the fringes, and then those nodes were able to repeat locally amongst the city. So I found that at first it wasn't working, but then I went into my settings and changed it so that it would my messages would go for more hops. So I set it to like something stupidly obnoxious, like 9 hops. So I basically flooded the local network with my test messages. But I was able to reach devices that were like up to 3 hops away. So a hop is basically like, when my message goes to a node that's in range and it passes it to a node that is out of range for me, but in range for it. And then that node then maybe passes that on again. So creating those sorts of mesh networks is really cool. And I wanted to see what the limits were. So I popped up a drone in the middle of our city and I went up to whatever the exact legal limit is where I stopped. And at that legal limit, I found that I could communicate line of sight with every single node in the city, plus some that were out of range of me that were hopping over other devices. So when I ended up doing this technique, I was able to reach to my friend all the way on the other end of the city. This was a range of about 20 miles. And what was cool about this was I could do a trace route in Meshtastic, and I could see that it was going from my node to the node in the sky that was hosted on the drone all the way over 20 miles away to another node that was just sitting in a window. So if you're looking to do this sort of like cool Meshtastic stuff and you're finding yourself blocked, consider just constantly flying a drone in the middle, because you can create a link that then hits other drones on the periphery and then eventually it gets past. My record so far is like 4 hops, which established a range of about like 30 miles or so. This wasn't super reliable, but it was able to pass messages. So if I had a sensor out there, or if I wanted to pass messages to a friend and I had a relay in a high place, that means you could potentially get some pretty incredible range on this, especially if there's other devices in the area. Now, I found that there were other devices in my area that were sharing their location, and I was able to map a couple of them. And one of them is a local electronics store. So I plan on kind of going into it and saying like, hey, I noticed you're running a relay and you're sharing your location. Like, that's really cool. Like, do you guys sell this stuff? Like, what is your interest? So yes, nice. Again, this is a cool way of meeting other people that are interested in the same kind of technology and the same kind of space. There's a pretty weird overlap with survivalists and hackers being interested in this sort of thing. And then in the center of the Venn diagram, there's a bunch of people. So I'm not really sure who else I'm reaching there, but it is a very cool thing. And if you're looking for an airborne experiment, I found that I got great results.
Before we move off of that topic, I know you were running one of these Meshtastics at RSA last week. What was the outcome of that? Because I know you had found some other ones there and you started communicating with people. Did you ever meet up with anybody, or what was the net outcome of that? Because I'm really curious to hear what that was in the city.
Yeah. So within the RSAC conference, is it redundant? Is the C for conference? Within RSAC, I just stuck a Meshtastic node called VeronisNet in the wall of our booth, and it was so busy, nobody really noticed the extra cable dangling out there, and I wasn't monitoring it either. So like people were messaging it, and I wasn't seeing it because I was off like filming and whatnot. But what ended up happening was people came to the booth and they're like, "Hey, I've got a Meshtastic node. I noticed you guys are running a relay, and you've actually got your name in it. Like that's so cool." like, why are you guys interested in this? Like who else, you know, and even just meeting a couple other people in this enthusiast group was enough to drive traffic to our booth. Now, it might not have been the kind of traffic that everybody was interested in, but it still was bringing people over, and they thought that it was really cool. So it was like, okay, if I'm getting random, you know, like amateur people that are interested in this technology to come over and talk with us about it, you know, this is a really positive sign. It's really cool. So not only was I able to get people in my local area over by the Fisherman's Wharf, where I was staying in a hotel, to create their own like local network, I also at the conference, even underground in this like highly like loud like radio space, was able to get people to come over and talk to us, and still get enough of a range that if you were within the same set of rooms, you could definitely detect us and know which booth to go to. So yeah, I met a bunch of friends. I think I met probably like 7 or 8 people using just like setting up a LoRa node and like being public about like what booth it was coming from. So super fun experiment, and definitely an interesting way of meeting other hackers in your area, especially if it's one of those conferences that's like our RSAC, and you're not really sure if other people are going to have much in common with you, because a lot of them might be like more like sales or marketing or something, and not know about this like kind of radio stuff. So yeah, pretty fun. All right, I think that's most. Oh wait, no, so we released some videos and I just wanted to shout them out first. Kilian, as I was saying, this is the interview where you were whispering in my ear. This was pretty cool. So wow, yeah, so make sure to check this out. It was just released a couple days ago. It goes through our experience at the conference. And we also have, where is it this one. Okay, so incident of the month. So we always have our forensic investigator people come on and talk about what incident they thought was really interesting, really cool. And this month it was getting hacked by a help desk system. So if you wanted to hear a really interesting story of a company that otherwise was very well defended, who had a breach and then needed to figure out like where it came from. I mean, not to spoil the plot, but it was the help desk. But if you want to find out why, the reasons were pretty interesting. And I think it's a good example of how a lot of these breaches actually work. Yeah, so this was one of my favorite pieces of content that we've put out in a while. And I just wanted to highlight that as we just put it out this week. So with that being said, I think that we're ready to move on to the news, because we've got a lot this week.
Yeah.
And this is the one that's bothering me the most personally. Kilian, have you noticed that suddenly Android devices are alerting you on unknown Bluetooth trackers?
You know what? I haven't personally noticed. I saw this story, and so I've been looking. So I guess nobody's tracking me. I appreciate that. Thank you. Please don't track me, anybody. I don't want to be bugged, but like I haven't noticed it myself, but I've been kind of keeping an eye out for those. Interested that they're doing this. I appreciate it, because it's pretty nefarious that people are misusing this helpful technology to like stalk people.
Yeah, it's it's definitely something that you've been blind to before. And like I realize that now, because I have had AirTags in my luggage for such a long time. And I just forgot about them. You know, like I literally like I don't think about them anymore. And then on this trip, they switched this on, and my Android phone lit up like a Christmas tree with alerts. It was just like things are tracking you, things are following you, and it was like another one's following you. And I was like, I don't even know what's going on anymore. So personally, I immediately got alarm fatigue. I basically got so many notifications from my own 2 AirTags, and I couldn't figure out how to disable them immediately. Like they don't make it like so you can be like, oh no, this is my AirTag. Like it's not something I'm worried about. They make it so you could ring it and vibrate it and whatever else. But at least on casual inspection, it was not super easy to flag one as like safe. So yeah, I guess my only feedback would be like, maybe I missed it, and maybe this is something that's totally already built in, but like making it so you can be like, no, it's mine, stop. Made it like not being able to do that was definitely something that was a desire I had, because if somebody was tracking me with an AirTag, there would be no way for me to actually tell that it wasn't in the swarm of AirTags that I already own that generally go with me when I have like luggage or other stuff that could get lost. Like if I'm going to get into an argument with like, you know, the airline about where my luggage is, I want to make sure that I'm like correct about it. So usually I do have an AirTag or so with me if I'm like not, you know, where I live. But yeah, like getting constantly alerted about that was both nice, because I realized how blind I was to it before, and annoying because I could not immediately disable it. So oh yes, Kilian, guess what? James says that we're gonna find better ways of tracking you, like rolling AirTags that switch identities. Yeah, so you can actually, with a microcontroller, emulate
Mhm.
an AirTag, it turns out. So if you wanted to just constantly create like rolling AirTags and like keep
Right.
making new ones, it would be, I think, relatively easy to defeat this new, like
Sure.
kind of straightforward technique that Apple and Google are adopting for privacy.
Now I kind of want to try this though. I have a couple tiles. Oh, I see one. It's on my floor right there. Now I kind of want to just put one in my pocket and see like what it does. I'm curious to try this.
Yeah. And so one thing that was noted on this is that some of the older versions will still not do this. So I think it's like
Mhm.
for the newer AirTags and stuff like that. Let's see. Let's see. Apple and Google say the AirTag and third-party Find My network accessories are already compatible with a new feature. I don't know. Okay, Motorola, Pebble Bee committing to making updates. Okay, so I don't see. I mean, I don't know how many manufacturers are going to join these two
Right.
companies in doing that. However, it is a step forward, and I did immediately see an impact on my own personal ability to detect these
Mhm.
trackers. So if you've got, you know, an angry ex or something that is putting an AirTag on your car, and then suddenly this starts going off in the next couple of days, then you probably got an Android update. uh, but the joke aside, I think it's pretty stunning to know that if you're an Android user, you would have had no idea that a
Right.
tracker was going with you like prior to like this week. So if you start getting that flag all of a sudden, don't take it to mean that that thing was necessarily just planted within the last couple of days. This is an update that's rolling out like right now. So it could just mean that you just got an update and all of a sudden this tracker that's been with you for quite some time
Mhm.
is appearing. That's why I got panicked a little bit when I first saw this alert. I was like, wow, a new tracker. Like, that's not good. I was like, oh, wait, like, this is my tracker. Like, why is this coming up as new? You
Mhm.
know? So that's why.
Interesting.
All right. We've got some more stuff. So this one is one that I would describe as slightly difficult to understand for people who might not be familiar with Wi-Fi.
Mhm.
I want to be completely transparent. I am still slightly confused about all the implications of this attack,
Yeah.
which requires a little bit more study because, all right, so this is a design flaw in Wi-Fi, which doesn't always check whether or not an SSID is necessarily the correct network. And this has been a thing for a good amount of time. This has
Yeah.
been able to be abused by a number of different attacks. And this one is, again, slightly confusing to me. However, what it appears to do is trick devices into thinking that they're connecting to a more secure version of a network when
Mhm.
instead they're experiencing a downgrade attack. So let's say that we want to attack a Wi-Fi device that's on 5 gigahertz. And generally this has a bit better security. It's faster. It's maybe not in range of all of our wireless hacking gear. 2.4 gigahertz is a lot easier to attack, and there's a lot of known attacks against it that make it great. And of course, we have some of our audience who is asking about, you know, more advanced Wi-Fi protocols and standards and how we can attack them. So let's go ahead and talk about how this attack could be like sort of abused in that way. Theoretically, you can have a 5 gigahertz network or like a more
Mhm.
secure network that the device prefers to connect to. And in this attack, what, as far as I understand it, it appears that you can create your own rogue network that has the name of that more secure network, even though it's using 2.4 gigahertz.
Mhm.
So we're downgrading it to WPA2. We're downgrading it to 2.4 implementation of that, which means it's going to be more vulnerable to more different types of hacking tools. And we can start attacking it in more interesting ways. So if we're an attacker, we can find a network that we know the password to. We can
Mhm.
pop up a fake network that has the same name as a secure network, and then people's devices will automatically join that fake network thinking it's the secure version of the network. And that might
Right.
cause a couple other behaviors. One of them being a lot of people have their VPN to disable when they're on their home Wi-Fi network.
Right.
And that can mean that you can trick people's VPNs into disabling themselves by
Mhm.
tricking them into thinking they're on a secure network, even though they're not. So that is a big problem.
Yeah.
And it's something that I am going to continue to investigate and maybe develop a little bit of a proof of concept on so I can explain this in more scenarios and situations. But this is kind of breaking news. I was
Right.
just beginning to see this a couple days ago, and I've only watched this video like 5 times. So if you want to join me, this is how I instantly knew that it was Matthew Van Hoff. Like, for one, like he works at this university, and like I just remember seeing it when I saw it on his demo page. But this is the way that this goes. Let's see if I can caption it. Yeah. Okay. So Yeah, so 5 gigahertz bands use newer and more secure access points. We're trying to downgrade it to a 2.4 gigahertz, and the adversary is tricking Android into connecting to the 2.4 gigahertz SSID that is created with the same name as the 5 gigahertz SSID. So the device doesn't really know the difference, or really isn't checking the difference between the SSIDs, and as a result, it'll just pick whichever one is strongest. And in that case, we're able to leak information. We're able to establish a man-in-the-middle attack, and we can get people to connect. So this would be perfect against things like the conference or hotel Wi-Fi. And I was joking when we were at RSAC. I was like, I don't know if I really want to sign into anything here, because I bet if I was an adversary, this is the one conference where like all the conditions of this attack are met. Like there's another network with like a known password. Like we're able to potentially create rogue networks that trick a device into connecting and then thinking that it's connected to a more secure one. I didn't want to do it. So this is one of the examples of like how that attack could, or those sorts of attacks could actually work, and how you could end up connecting to a network that you don't intend to connect to. So keep your eyes on this one. Anytime I see Matthew Van Hoff involved in this research, I know that it's probably pretty serious. And when I see that it involves all devices, that's something that's going to take a while to patch. So these are the ones that I love. And I just wanted to throw this one out there. It's probably my most interesting attack of the week that I want to dive deeper into. So yes, keep your eye on this one. I'll probably have more to report next week. All right. This one is wild. Kilian, did you get a chance to read through this?
I did. And my high level takeaway is guys steal money that doesn't exist.
Like future InfoSec consultants arrested for $25 million theft in blockchain attack. So good at computers, they take computer money and nobody knew who they were until they made one or two slip ups. Was basically the high level I got from the story. So let's dive into what actually happened. The U.S. Department of Justice indicted 2 brothers and former MIT students who hatched a scheme to steal a bunch of Ethereum by manipulating the blockchain and stealing $25 million worth of the cryptocurrency in 12 seconds. This all sounds like their marketing bio in the future as consultants. So if they learn from this experience, I don't know. I've just seen many hacker arcs in this regard. And I'm not saying that what they did was right. I am just glad that for one, it wasn't real money. And for two, that, you know, in this case, it seems as though they were caught relatively quickly. And this didn't turn into hopefully a long life of crime. So it seems like perhaps they were better at math than they were at crime. So in this case, they were arrested after attempting to hide the money, which was a lot more complicated apparently than stealing it. They had to do multiple online searches for how to facilitate these crimes, and these were cited in the FBI indictment as being material to figuring out that it was them. So imagine like being so good at math and computer science that you can steal $25 million, but then having no idea how to launder it because that process is like completely outside your scope of experience. That's basically what happened here.
When you say that, all I can think of is like Office Space, like where they made the little, you know, the salami attack or whatever. It's just when I read this, like that's all I thought about is like this seems like it should be, you know, Office Space 2 here.
Yeah, so I'm pretty interested in seeing how this goes. This is the official announcement. I bet it would be kind of funny to play it at double speed. But and there's no captions. Oh, it's already auto captioned. Yes. So this is the official announcement of the indictment. You know that the crime you committed was pretty serious when like you get like someone to go up from the Justice Department and comment on it. So this is a pretty crazy one. So if you're looking for a wild heist of the week, this would definitely be my pick. These 2 brothers, like managed to get away with stealing a lot of cryptocurrency and then did a pretty sophisticated job of attempting to hide and launder that money. So yeah, if you're interested in a great story, at least for how a couple people use their knowledge of computer science to steal a bunch of money, but then ultimately still get caught because money laundering is actually super hard, this is the story of the week. All right, next up, this was a really interesting one. Kilian, did you have a look at this?
I did. I did look at that. Go ahead. I was gonna say.
Yeah. So I haven't really seen the government take much of a stance on AI when it comes to using critical industry before. And this is something that is new And I'm keeping my eye on very much because a lot of these companies have rushed to roll out these AI products and are experiencing problems, like, or potentially have had oversights that could leak data or be vulnerable to some of the attacks that we know and love on this channel. So that's model inversion and like prompt manipulation and all that fun stuff where like we're like, oh, my grandmother used to tell me the story of how to make napalm before going to bed. I miss her so much. Could you, so the grandma escape is a known hacker escape for AI models where, you tell it that like your grandmother used to tell you some sort of forbidden thing that it's not supposed to tell you. And then, out of sympathy for you, it will recount that information, that forbidden stuff, under the right context. So contexting is an old social engineering skill that is equally applicable against AI models. And the government goes into that here, which I thought was kind of cool.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the government talk about these goofy attacks that like many other hackers have been doing against AI models since basically the start. But these sorts of attacks are things that we were teaching kids during our cyber camp to take advantage of it and be aware of. So seeing some of the same techniques that like these 8 to like 13-year-old kids were doing against like the Lacarta like AICTF is really cool. But anyway, the government is recommending here that like critical infrastructure that is attempting to implement AI really take a look at a couple different things. One of them is making sure that the infrastructure that it's running on is secured to certain standards. The other one is just establishing a culture of risk management for AI that is aware of these sorts of threats. So basically being aware of what hackers can do with your AI models that are public facing, what insiders can do with your like internal AI models, and then just understanding what can happen if someone gets access to the infrastructure running all of this. I was talking a while ago about how these AI models run on such sophisticated and powerful infrastructure that gaining access to it is just a dream to a lot of these criminals because they're able to use that powerful infrastructure to mine for cryptocurrency or host all sorts of stuff. So the infrastructure itself is a very valuable target here. And the US government is really getting serious about getting people to think about what sorts of things they should prioritize. So these are the official recommendations. Establish an organizational culture of AI risk management, understand your individual AI use context and risk profile, develop systems to assess, analyze, and track AI risk, prioritize and act upon AI risk to safely, and secure. Oh, to safety and security. I thought it said securely. Okay, yeah. Prioritize and act upon AI risk to safety and security. So that is also great because working at a company that actually is specifically addressing some of these threats, I'm like, oh, nice. It's good to see that like some of the things that we have been individually prioritizing as a company are actually now industry-wide things that are going to potentially be not just a suggestion, but maybe a requirement for critical infrastructure in the near future. So this sort of conversation is like, all right, like people do really care about whether or not you can, as an insider, for example, extract tons of information very, very quickly. Like AIs that are built for internal facing users might actually be in the future the best way of draining an organization of their most valuable secrets. So I think the government is starting to realize that. And that's why, it's pretty cool to see that some of the things that Veronis has been talking about and was presenting at RSAC are actually coming up in the context of government warnings to critical infrastructure.
Yeah, no, that's really cool to see them moving as fast as they are on this. And I know, Kody, you and I talk about this, and I talk about it every day, all day. Businesses realize that there is a huge productivity gain from this, but the risks are immense if the data that it's pulling in on the user's behalf is not secured properly, or if you want to get really tricky, if an attacker can poison it or do something malicious to have malicious output come out of the AI also. So there's a lot of considerations, and it's nice to see them moving this quickly on it.
Yeah. Also, hello. Yes, I did do Nullbyte. It's good to see some other people on the channel. All right. So next up, this is a great sign. So Microsoft is going to start enforcing Azure multi-factor authentication. That means they're going to be rolling it out and hope to have 100% MFA for all users in the future. And that is because they found that these MFA protected accounts are so resilient against attacks. They're talking like 99.5 or 99.995 or things. 98.56%
Right.
Reduction of risk of compromise. Like these are pretty serious numbers for them, and they've decided that they are no longer asking. This is happening just because the numbers don't lie when it comes to the way that this protection impacts users. Gone are the days of your childhood where a simple password will log you into pretty much any service.
Right.
Microsoft has now decided that that is no longer a thing, and I think that that is fair because with all these compromises, like you really have, like in order to operate without MFA right now, you would need to have a perfect record all the time. You would need to never reuse passwords. You would need to never ever get phished or like type your password into the wrong thing. Like, and that's pretty hard to do. Like, it's possible, but the average user like slips up every once in a while, and MFA is there to make sure that that's not a big deal.
We have some throwdown in the chat here. Somebody using Windows 3.11, Windows for Workgroups. Specifically, 1.1 for workgroups. That's the first one I think they did with networking when they added it in for like local networking connections out of the box.
Wow, yeah.
I only know that because
I don't know
that was the first Windows that I ever had. That shows my age too. I had an Apple IIe, so that shows also my age.
Well, yeah, James just said, didn't they make MS-DOS open source? That was I remember that was my first experience, was just MS-DOS games. That's how I know how to find the home directory. All right, so next up, I thought this was a bigger deal than it is at first, but the SEC is telling some financial organizations they have 30 days to send data breach notifications. This is becoming more of an industry standard. It's rolling out more and more, and the government also is helping to pick up the slack with industries that aren't getting with the program. So this isn't everything, but it is a lot of brokerages, broker dealers, investment firms, and registered investment advisors and transfer agents are now required to provide these breach notifications within 30 days. I think, again, that should be an industry standard. It's like not that hard to do. And of course, companies don't want to do this because it hurts their stock price. It could potentially make them look bad. So yeah, I think that this is a good move. Again, it doesn't affect like the entire financial sector. It just affects a couple specific types, but that's still very pleasing news to see that these data breaches are going to get reported more quickly and victims will have more time to be able to protect themselves with credit monitoring. Sorry. All right, so we have an arrest in some suspects behind a pig butchering scheme. So what is pig butchering, if not the obvious? Well, it is a disgustingly named scheme in which people are tricked into believing that they're making fantastic gains in some sort of trading or cryptocurrency thing. Usually somebody will go on like a dating website or something like that and be like, hey, have you checked out this amazing platform? I just made 20 million. I'm floating on a yacht right now. It changed my life. I was a stupid person before, but now I'm brilliant. And they're like, well, I'm interested in this. What's going on? And then, they invest $20 and it's just like, you just made $20,000, buddy. You're going to Hawaii. And they're like, oh my goodness. Like, wow, there's another deal. You want to put in more? You should put in 10,000. Like, well, if I already made this much, then yes. So they put in the additional however much money. And then they're like, oh yeah, buddy, sorry. We're experiencing network problems. And then they get locked out. And whatever money that you put in, and sometimes the process goes on for a really long time. And basically, as long as you'll continue to put in money and continue to make fake gains, is as long as they will take your money. And as soon as you try to withdraw that money, especially above like a certain limit, then they will basically lock you out and you're done. So these scams impact a lot of people, especially the thrill of thinking that you're making money is enough to get people to donate, to effectively throw away a lot of cash into these scams. And because they're often brought into these scams by other people who are either tricked by them or by social engineering attacks, a lot of either older people or people with like retirement money are typically ensnared by this. And the FBI and the Department of Justice are warning that this is becoming an increasingly lucrative thing for criminals to do. $73 million is a lot of people's money. And again, this comes from messaging apps, dating platforms, or social media platforms to build trust, which is the way that these people have been able to make these criminal organizations so profitable. So these arrests, I think that one of the, I'm trying to remember exactly what maximum penalty of 20 years for each count. I think that it was something like 90 something years potentially for like the total, which is a lot. But for this amount of money in financial crime, and also the targeted nature of it, these were purely malicious attacks that were like abusing people to effectively play like a really terrible casino game, and then take their hard-earned money while making them think that they were establishing gains the entire time.
Cody, I have to break away for just a second. Do you know that we have a celebrity in our chat right now?
Oh my goodness. Is it the former co-host Michael Raymond, now on the eternal quest for the Squatch?
Virtual CISO Michael Raymond?
Wow. Rare to see Michael on the stream with him being busy as the virtual CISO for many businesses here in Montana. You know, if you're looking for someone who knows about financial stuff, then Michael's actually helping out with the posture of many banks, which is very cool. So I think that the fact that Michael's back and he's learned a bunch about how businesses implement cybersecurity is pretty cool.
Very
Good
cool.
to see you, Michael. Hope you find that Squatch. All right. So next story, we got a couple more to get through. This one was crazy.
Yes.
So how, if you are a talented North Korean computer scientist that wants to earn money for the country's nuclear program, do you actually go about doing it? Well, apparently you just hire someone in Los Angeles to create a laptop farm that makes it look like you are actually in the country. And then your laptop sits there, you remotely administer it from North Korea, and you apply to jobs for like a bunch of really, really big companies and turn in the work and get paid. And that paycheck goes directly to building nuclear weapons. So if you've ever suspected that that remote coworker of yours like might actually be a North Korean spy, that might not actually be a completely unfounded paranoid delusion. At least in some cases, people are now finding out that their coworker, who maybe didn't talk that much in meetings, was actually a North Korean worker who was trying to develop the country's nuclear program. So they had 60 US identities. So this is 60 fake workers with remote jobs operating out of a single home. Actually, I think that there were two different ones. 79 computers and $920,000 in payments since 2018. Pretty wild that like of all the different ways that the North Koreans are working to like raise money for this program, loaning out their best computer scientists to not only probably spy on whatever these companies are working on, but also just get paid a regular paycheck and conceal the fact that they are in a country that, you know, is not allowed to be employed like in most places. That's wild to actually see what the infrastructure looks like and see what happens when this is up in full swing. So yeah, again, you shouldn't accuse all of your coworkers of being North Korean spies. However, if you do see the warning signs, this is actually in some cases a real thing, and at least 60 people were in fact not really identities in the United States. This also apparently affected 300 US companies. So 300 businesses across the United States over the last couple of years have found out that they've accidentally hired North Korean spies, or at least North Korean computer scientists working to raise money for a nuclear program.
Talk about being overemployed. Like I think this is my favorite weird story of the week, honestly. Like
I have to say so too. It's a pretty close running on this one because there's some other pretty wacky ones this week, but this one definitely blew my mind. The two like MIT brothers, like I have to say, are a close runner up, but this one is probably crazy. All right, this one, so you can see in the title that we were talking about a lot of medical breaches. We've been seeing for weeks now more and more breaches against medical organizations as ransomware gangs decide that they are no longer out of bounds. MediSecure is an Australian prescription management service. It's one of like the two paperless like prescription providers in Australia, and they shut down their services. It seems as though this was an attack on a third-party vendor, which caused some sort of data breach, but they're out of a abundance of caution, shutting down everything. And of course, this is affecting a lot of people. So we have seen a number of different ransomware attacks against healthcare organizations. Some of them are pharmacies, some of them are hospitals, some of them are, I think one of them last week was like a home medical services company
Yeah.
where they come to your home, or they send nurses to your home. So all these different medical businesses are now being targeted for their data. And that is, I think, pretty inevitable because of the position that these businesses have. And previously, the government and police have gone after threat actors who have attacked these sorts of businesses pretty heavily because they're considered to be critical infrastructure. But it seems as though the gloves are off, and now a lot of ransomware gangs are no longer making that distinction that the medical industry is out of bounds.
And I think about the type of information that we see stolen from a lot of these is all of the stuff that you need for like identity fraud. And then, we'll go back to our previous story that just can filter into some other program down the line. Take this information, make up a fake identity, and then, the North Koreans can use it to get overemployed. And, that's one more stage in the chain. So, I mean, it's awful to see, but it makes sense.
Yeah, pretty big focus on medical sector within the last couple of weeks. All right, so this one is just a quick note. I'm trying to keep up on APT techniques and seeing that a lot of European government agencies have been breached with this new lunar malware. The key characteristics are that it is spread through email, spear phishing attacks, and in general is just a very persistent spying backdoor.
Yeah.
So I just want to throw this out there as like this was one of the APT tools I've seen exposed this week. It's something that hasn't been seen before. At least from what I was looking at, like this is using like relatively standard attack techniques, and there's nothing like super novel about it. It's just this is one of the things that was uncovered the last couple of weeks, and I wanted to give it a shout out. The graph is also not that confusing, so I don't know if this qualifies for our confusing graph of the week. Unfortunately, but they'll have to try harder.
The funny thing is, yet again, this is new and novel techniques, but one of the main entry points is just malicious macros in a Word doc. Like how many years? How many years have we been talking about this? Yeah.
Yeah. So nothing too crazy or new here. Just wanted to shout that out as another APT tool. You could read more about the story here. All right. So Google is fixing another actively exploited Chrome vulnerability. And this is just something that we see all the time now. The pressure here, as we always talk about, is usually mercenary spyware groups. And these are organizations that sell entry tools to governments or just whoever has the money that are often used to attack journalists, public right defenders, and politicians lately. So these have come under heavy scrutiny because they arguably make the world a worse place for everyone. And Google is in a constant cat and mouse game to patch these vulnerabilities. This one is yet another one that has been actively exploited. It is a vulnerability in the Chrome V8 JavaScript engine and is reported by Kaspersky. And again, also tagged as actively exploited. So again, like it's not always possible to attribute these attacks to any particular group, but typically these patches are driven by the, I guess, commoditization of these vulnerabilities into actual weaponized spyware. So that is why it is a very good idea to patch these, because as soon as they go public, then it trickles down into a market that purely targets devices that haven't been updated to deal with these attacks. So once everybody knows about them, you can expect these to be much more widely attacked or much more widely exploited and kind of trickle down into like other spyware groups that make things for, I don't know, like jealous spouses or like overwatchful parents and stuff like that that could easily be abused to target other people.
We have two jealous spouses this week. We have the AirTags and we got this one.
Yeah, I don't like that. So yeah. So that's kind of the two ways that I feel like people end up getting people spying on them most commonly is by these sorts of exploits, like exactly this sort of thing that's able to target their devices if it hasn't been updated, that then kind of trickles down the chain of sleazy spyware vendors. And then, AirTags and other commercial trackers. Like that's kind of a perfect recipe to be able to either get into someone's phone, like install an app that they're not supposed to have on their phone, or track them physically. Very creepy. All right, so we now have some new anti-theft and data protection features being implemented into Android. So Android already had some of these, like Find My Android and stuff like that. You could lock it, you could remotely do it, but hey, how do you actually do that in a real scenario? So let me give you a situation. You realize at a party that somebody has stolen your phone, right? And you want to be able to like find some sort of way to
now,
immediately lock down your phone. Sorry,
Kody, is that someone who stole your phone?
Yes, Pompey has stolen my phone. I don't know where he hid it, and I don't have access to another phone to lock it down. So how do I make sure that Pompey can't get into my phone? Well, the best way to do that, apparently, according to this new update, is to actually call the phone and respond to some sort of challenge. So imagine that you could call your own phone number, Android picks up or whatever, and then you give it some sort of special challenge. And then from that challenge, you could lock your phone, wipe it, or do some other sort of tracking activity. That obviously to me seems like maybe a problem. Somebody could abuse the system to either track you or lock your phone or remotely wipe your phone. And obviously this is probably opt-in, but I just thought it was an interesting take that they really thought about it. Let's say you're at a nightclub and you realize, oh my gosh, my phone's missing. Somebody in this club still has it. And maybe it's unlocked. Maybe they can get into that. So in order to mitigate that, because let's say that it falls out of your pocket, it's still unlocked, or somebody picks it up. What can you do to make it less useful for that person? Because they're just going to keep it open, until it's locked, and they have a couple hours maybe before you're able to get home or get somebody else to log into a computer and do Find My Android or something like that. So what they've done is made it so that you can have private areas of your phone that are basically locked down. So they require additional authentication to get into. So that means that somebody who finds your phone unlocked isn't able to dig around into it as much. And they also have the ability to, potentially lock from any other of your friends or any phone you have access to just by calling that number then and doing the remote lock over the phone. So that seems interesting. I don't know if that's a vulnerability, if it could be abused or what. However, I feel like it could become a problem under the right circumstances, but I still really appreciate that they thought about the typical scenario for this sort of thing. And that I think is at least worth a mention on the show, where if you are worried about theft and you want to have the option to use any other person's phone to lock or remotely administer your phone in that way, I don't know what the challenge exactly will look like. But I do want to know that. So the automatic theft detection, I guess, if you move too swiftly, it'll lock the device. I do a lot of stupid stuff. So I feel like if I have this on, it's gonna be you move too fast, no, I fell, or no, I dropped the phone. So I guess do I really care if I drop the phone, if I have to unlock it with my fingerprint or something? Probably not. And that might be something that a lot of people would actually enjoy as peace of mind, where if somebody really does snatch it and then run away with it, that running away feature is enough to lock it. But if you like to jog, then maybe also the process of you just put it in your phone and running is enough to trigger this repeatedly. I don't really know. I'm just kind of spitballing here, but I feel like I'm excited to try it out at least, because I do appreciate the anti-theft features.
I mean, think about it. People who are concerned about security and things like that, I can speak for myself. We certainly don't do a lot of running.
Yeah, it's abnormal activity detected. It's I'm literally exercising for the first time.
That is abnormal. I want my anomaly detection to flag that, because it's weird. Why would I do that?
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. And then also James says, I love hello. There we go. I love Android's new secure area feature to lock entire sections of your phone up and down. If I'm at the bar, I'm likely not doing banking or doing work. Yeah, locking down areas of your phone or making it so that you have to authenticate to get into them, I think is really smart. The fact you can open a lot of apps without any authentication, just dive into people's personal life is a little nerve-wracking. So making an unlocked phone less of a easy target, I think, was the entire idea here. And that's a pretty bold target to go against, that's kind of the worst case scenario. Somebody grabs your unlocked phone. So making that less useful by making the snatch be able to detect them, or making it less useful for them to dive into. I think this also addresses the jealous partner thing for the third time on this stream. Where let's say that somebody a partner or somebody else gets access to your phone and wants to start going through it unrestrictedly, and that's not something you consented to. Well, this is a way that you could build in a little bit of technological prevention to make it so that somebody going through your device without your permission, whoever they are, gets a little bit less use out of that. How well does this stack up to legal request, and is Google able to unlock these areas? I don't know. However, this does, at least for the context of theft, make it less useful. especially if somebody is looking to do some of these exploitations where they'll steal your device, go through your pictures, find embarrassing ones, and then ransom you and say that they'll release the photos if you don't give them money. That actually has happened a number of times. And I've seen it documented that is a concern for people who lose their unlocked devices, is that someone could do that. So there's multiple different facets here that I think that Google is addressing with this update. All right, running through them. Oh, we're slightly over, but we've just got a couple left to do.
Yeah.
All right, so sorry, James, I have to hide you now. Breach Forums is now under control of the FBI, and there's speculation that the operator of Breach Forums is now arrested, especially with this Avi that they added here of them behind bars. The website has been taken down by the FBI and DOJ with assistance from international partners. Yeah, so that's pretty straightforward. Like that's the news. Waiting to see any further developments here. It seems like Breach Forums attracted good amount of attention when they leaked a bunch of data from a European law enforcement portal. This data caused a lot of stir, and as a result, I think that that was the final straw. Yep. So we'll see probably more about this soon, but obviously the notification of it being seized is a pretty strong indicator that this is something that law enforcement has prioritized, and we can expect to see further announcements about Breach Forums in the immediate future. But yeah, their infrastructure has been seized, it looks like, and it also we've seen rumors that the administrator has now been arrested. So yeah, we'll see more about this probably next week. Wow. All right. So Tornado Cash, crypto mixer dev. This was notoriously associated with North Korean ransomware. Got 64 months in prison for laundering I thought that was an M, but that's a B, $1 billion.
Right.
So that's a lot of money, and that's 64 months. Like that's okay. Well, we'll see or whatever. I'm always surprised by the prison sentences in some of these because some of it is just like really crazy and some of it's not. But in this case, it looks like the crime, of course, was financial crime, basically allowing criminals to launder money that was made through like extremely nefarious means and not really asking any questions or complying with any of the numerous laws that require you to know who is giving you money when you are transacting it. So because they failed to register as the proper entity and also weren't doing any of the required checks to make sure that the North Korean threat actors that were laundering money through weren't in fact North Korean threat actors, they earned themselves a good amount of time in prison. So these sorts of money laundering platforms are becoming an increasing target for law enforcement because they are the infrastructure that a lot of these cyber criminals rely on to be able to cash out. And that is one of the hardest things, as the two MIT brothers found out. So being able to go after some of these marketplaces that allow cyber criminals to wash their money and cash it out is something that we're going to probably continue to see law enforcement do, as it's been incredibly effective. And also they are such easy targets because of the amount of money that they transact and their relatively public profile.
Yep.
All right, burning through. We got another healthcare breach. This is 895,000 people's data stolen in ransomware attack. I believe this was, in August of 2023. This is from Singing River Health Systems. And it appears that this was a ransomware attack. Was it? A sophisticated ransomware attack, which was double exploitation. It also seems that about, I think it was saying like 80% of the data here has already been leaked. That is the full name, date of birth, physical address, social security number, medical information. Like what? Health information. Like
they got it all.
like what? Like your X-rays? Like my genetic code? Sorry,
probably.
I would really I would really love a little bit more transparency here into like what medical information and health information are. These not the same thing? Why are they not? What is the difference? But anyway, I don't like it. So anyway, we have more credit monitoring going on. In this case, it looks like, at least they've said that there does not appear to be evidence of this data being used in any sort of like financial crime. However, with all the data just being leaked on the internet, I can't say I'm super enthusiastic about that trend continuing indefinitely. All right. A little bright spot. So VMware is making Workstation Pro and Fusion Pro free for personal use. For a lot of people that like to run different operating systems, this is wonderful. Some of the solutions out there are not so great, especially if you're working on certain types of infrastructure. So I welcome this just because I think virtualization is a lot of fun. I don't do it personally because I actually hate it, but I do think it's a lot of fun.
Right.
And then last up, we've got... Oh yeah, we already covered that one. So we're done. We're done. I just wanted to mention that my home state is continuing to attempt to ban TikTok. It has already been held unconstitutional and is now going under a Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals review. So we'll see how that goes. But generally, this ban is incredibly overbroad and has already been found to violate the Constitution. So guess we'll see how that goes. But as of now, TikTok is free and legal in the Big Sky country and shall hopefully continue to be, at least in the near future. So I guess we'll see what happens with the overall national TikTok ban, but at least Montana's like first of its... KIlian, why are you so small? KIlian, come back. All right. There we go. Yeah, so Montana's first of its kind TikTok ban appears to still be under review, but still not be implemented. So at least so far.
The case might be thrown out as moot if, depending on what happens with the overall one, to be honest.
Yeah.
That's the most likely outcome I could see.
Yeah, we'll see. And this is also an interesting legal test of just like what's going to happen if there was the national ban, like what kind of arguments would TikTok make? The Electronic Frontier Foundation, who I respect very much, has been involved in this case. So whether or not you like TikTok, I think that a lot of the arguments here apply to most social media companies, with the exception of it potentially having a link to China. I don't necessarily think that the having a link to China is the most nefarious part of the data collection, like violations and other things that we're talking about here. So having more broad conversation about, what kinds of information should be collected and how it should be processed by services you use, like social media, I'm all for that. But banning one specific company because they're not American, when they're all doing a lot of things that I don't think most Americans would be comfortable with if they really understood the full scope. That's where I think we might be falling short on this one, at least in Montana. But that's just my personal opinion. As someone who lives here, being subject to one of the first TikTok bans, I made a "Don't Tread on Me" with like the TikTok snake, like replacing the TikTok logo as a snake. So one person bought that shirt. So if you were that person who thought that was funny on TikTok, or on Twitter, then thank you for reinforcing me. A lot of people in Montana just stare at the shirt and they're just like, I like it, but I don't understand. I'm like,
there you go.
Good. That was what I was going for.
Yeah, right. I kind of have a feeling that the courts are probably going to not rule on this or try and avoid ruling on it because it could be very, very far reaching. And or it's going to go up to the Supreme Court. Anyways.
We'll see. Yeah, the national ban is something that I'm keeping my eye on. I think, it's going to have repercussions for a lot of social media companies as the focus kind of shifts towards them. I think the conversation has kind of avoided a lot of American social media companies for now, but we'll see where that goes in the near future. All right, so that's all we have time for this week. KIlian, thanks for hanging out with us today. I know we went a little over, but it's always a lot of fun. And we'll be back next week, and I am going to the Layer 1 conference. So I'm going to be going to Los Angeles starting on Wednesday, I think. So I will be having a different background as I usually do. And if anybody's going to be in Missoula for the weekend, like I said, we have that free class coming up at the Library Makerspace. So check it out, and hopefully I see a couple of you there. Otherwise, I'll see everybody next week on Wednesday. And if you want to support the stream and make sure we keep doing it every week, twice a week, make sure to go to Varonis.com/Kody. That's Kody. And it lets them know you appreciate the stream and you want to keep seeing us every week. So that's all we have this time. We'll see you next week, everyone. And have a good one, everybody. Goodbye.